Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
A few decades ago, the vast majority of cars worked exclusively on carburetor engines. In our time, there are no new cars with a carburetor, as they have been completely replaced by injector systems. The history of the injector began in aviation, where in 1916 Soviet designers Mikulin and Stechkin created the first aircraft engine, equipped with a fuel injection system. But mass production started only 20 years later, just before the war. Moreover, the injectors were manufactured in Europe by Bosch. New fuel supply systems started to be used on motor vehicles only in the 50s of the last century. Initially, neither automakers nor consumers were interested in injectors. A couple of decades later, the question of the environmental friendliness of engines arose. Plus, technology has reached a level that allows to engage in a full-fledged production of injector systems. Now no one will argue with the fact that injectors dominate the market, while carburetors are gradually becoming history. What it is, the first thing to do is to understand exactly what injectors are on modern cars. Injector automotive systems are modern internal combustion engines that are equipped with a special injector system to carry out fuel injection. It comes from the word injection, i.e., injection or injection. All modern cars are equipped only with an injector, which has become a worthy alternative to the already morally and technically obsolete carburetor motors. With their help, the necessary level of performance, economy, and environmental friendliness is achieved. When choosing a new car, buyers are interested in what an injector car is and why an injector is needed in the engine design. This is a special system for supplying the combustion chamber with the necessary amount of air and fuel itself, which differs significantly from the carburetor, where the supply is carried out by gravity. Here a mixture of fuel and oxygen, air, is formed, which is injected into the working cylinders with the help of injectors. And the system itself determines in what proportions it is necessary to mix these components, based on the readings of sensors and controllers. By atomization, rather than pumping, it is possible to significantly save fuel, increase combustion efficiency, reduce the volume of exhaust gases produced, as well as to increase the power of the power plant. In order to understand what an injector car means, it is worth comparing it with carburetor analogs to study the varieties of available injector car systems, as well as to understand their principle of operation and the device itself. Injector versus carburetor. The key difference between these two popular systems can be found in the principle of operation of the more modern injector engines. They are equipped with a fundamentally different fuel supply scheme, and therefore, according to the principle of its operation, the injector engine is exactly different from the carburetor conditional competitor. If not to go into detail, the injector type of motor differs most strongly from the obsolete carburetor in terms of the device of the system itself of fuel supply to the chamber, and in relation to the power supply of the power plant. In the case of carbureted internal combustion engines, mixing gasoline with oxygen, air, occurs in a special separate device, which is located on the outside. This is the carburetor itself. When the mixture is formed, it begins to be sucked into the cylinders. Moreover, this happens by the so-called self-flow. If we talk about how injector engines work, then here in the system there are special feed injectors. They dose the amount of injected fuel, which occurs under a certain pressure, and then this amount of fuel is mixed with a certain portion of air. The efficiency of a car injector exceeds a carburetor by an average of 15%. That is, all other things being equal, a power plant with an injector system will be 15% more powerful than a similar carbureted motor. Another strong argument in favor of the injector is the issue of fuel economy. Regardless of the selected mode of operation of the power plant, the injector system consumes less fuel. Types. Choosing a car with an injector system of fuel supply, it is worth paying close attention to exactly what type is used there. In total, there are several subcategories: single-point systems, distributive, direct. Each injector presented differs in where the injection is located, as well as where and how many injectors are located. Single-point systems, which are also often referred to as mono-injection, are the very first development. Its distinguishing feature is the presence of only one injector, which is located inside the intake manifold. That is, one injector works for the benefit of all cylinders that are provided on the power unit. Such a system has quite a lot of disadvantages, because of which it began to be abandoned. And then the mono-injection stopped its existence altogether. Having sorted out all the previous mistakes, after the monoflow injection, a system of distributed injection appeared. It also uses a manifold, but each cylinder intake valve has a separate injector above it. Direct injection is considered to be the newest and most advanced development. Their principle of operation is different from all the others presented. The injectors are placed in such a way that the fuel is fed directly, i.e., directly into the cylinder itself. The supply goes inside the combustion chamber, not through the manifold. To accommodate the injectors, cylinder heads were used. In many respects, this system resembles the supply and formation of the fuel mixture realized in diesel engines. In addition to this classification, also distinguish systems depending on the type of injection provided. In total, there are 3 variants of injection on injectors of the distributed type, simultaneous. Here at once all injectors in such a system carry out the injection of fuel-air mixture. Pair parallel. A distinctive feature is the paired opening of working injectors. That is, one opens immediately before the injection itself, and the second before one of the tacks of the engine, which is called release. Phased. The system is distinguished by the fact that the injector opens immediately before the inlet. Direct. It is carried out directly into the working cylinder itself. Injector cars are gradually developing and improving. Engineers manage to get the most out of the potential of these systems. Device and principle of operation. To understand in more detail the principle of operation of the injector, you need to look at its main components. Any injector system consists of several basic elements, namely from fuel injectors, fuel ramp, pump, sensors, ECU. Read also anti-lock brake system design and ABS brake pumping. Each component plays its own key role in how the injector works with the fuel feed injectors installed inside it. The injectors, they are the basic, main element of the entire supply system. The injectors are the reason for the injector name, as they are designed to atomize and feed fuel through special inlet manifolds, or directly into the combustion chamber. The injector consists of a housing, inside of which a valve is placed. This valve is necessarily of the electromagnetic type. It opens and closes the atomizer, nozzle. The atomization process itself is carried out due to the presence of a ring-shaped hole provided between the needle and the walls of the body. The needle is controlled by the valve. Ramp, an important element for modern automotive injection systems, which operate on the principle of distributed injection. With the help of the ramp, fuel is supplied to all installed injectors and unites them in a common system. Pump. Since fuel in the case of injectors is supplied under a certain pressure, an electric pump is needed to create it. ECU. The control unit is fully responsible for the control and the process of feeding the formed fuel-air mixture. Externally, it resembles a small block connected to various sensors, injectors, fuel pump, as well as the ignition system and other elements. ECU collects information from different controllers and sensors, which allows it to correctly determine the proportions of fuel and air at the right time to perform injection, etc. Sensors. With the help of sensors, various indicators are recorded under real-time conditions. Moreover, each automaker determines the list of sensors to which the ECU is connected. The more information the controllers transmit to the ECU, the more efficient the entire system works. All these components are closely related to each other and constantly interact. It is on this interaction that the principle of operation of the injector engine itself is based. It looks approximately as follows. The ignition is switched on. Power is supplied to the pump located in the fuel tank. The pump transfers the fuel through a pressurized line. The injectors are located on the rail. The fuel flows through the rail to the injector. In addition, pressure regulators are located on the rail, ramp. Sensors transmit the information necessary for analysis to the ECU. The unit synchronizes injection by supplying special control impulses to the injectors. The pulses force the injectors to open at a given time. In simple terms, the fuel is atomized with the help of working nozzles in the manifold itself. There it is mixed with oxygen, air, and fed into the combustion chamber through valves. The undeniable advantage of a modern fuel injection system is the ability to automatically change the engine operating mode in a fraction of a second based on current conditions. Such high precision in the operation of the system has become possible due to the use of electronics integrated into the control unit of the entire automobile engine. Each sensor continuously transmits information to the ECU, which analyzes it and adjusts the system as necessary. This helps to achieve the required power, performance, economy, and environmental friendliness. Advantages and disadvantages. Objectively, in the world of modern cars, there is hardly a choice between an injector and carburetor engine. The advantages are unequivocally on the side of the injector. But even under such conditions, it is not superfluous to know what strengths and weaknesses characterize the injector power unit. To its main advantages include the following points. The engine automatically changes the mode of its work. It directly depends on what the current conditions are. It is this that gives the injector a huge head start over the carburetor. The driver does not need to do anything to make the motor work differently. He will analyze what is happening and change his work to achieve optimal performance. Manual settings. There simply aren't any. And this is another strong argument in favor of the injector. Motorists do not need to get under the hood, adjust, twist, and change something. Electronics does everything on its own. Economy. One of the factors of transition from carburetors to injectors was the question of expedient use of resources. Injectors in practice prove that they require less fuel at higher power and speed. Other things being equal, the injector consumes on average 15 to 20% less fuel than the once competitor in the face of carburetor system. Environmental friendliness. It is precisely because of the need to be environmentally friendly that engineers began actively producing injector systems. Without the injector, it would be impossible to meet today's extremely stringent environmental standards. Easier engine starting. This is achieved by having automatic detection of optimal operation. As a result, injectors start without any problems in all weathers and temperatures. But do not rush to conclusions. In addition to the obvious advantages, injector systems also have certain disadvantages. The main disadvantages include complex construction. Injector power unit is really arranged much more complicated than the same carburetor motor. But nowadays it is no longer a serious problem. Workers of car services can easily cope with all the tasks associated with injectors. And car owners themselves have learned to solve a number of issues by themselves. Costs. Design features entailed an increase in the cost of production of components and assembly. This was the reason for the increase in the cost of the engine itself. The problem of repairing components of the fuel supply system. Some components are not reparable at all, while others are very difficult to repair. Therefore, it is often easier to replace the part at once than to try to bring it back to life. And this is additional financial costs. Fuel requirements. If the carburetor could digest almost everything, for the injector it is important to fill the tank with good enough fuel with certain characteristics and composition. They are determined by the car manufacturer itself. Fueling at cheap and dubious gas stations often becomes the cause of many breakdowns and malfunctions. Repair and maintenance. The injector requires skillful hands and a professional approach. Specialists do not recommend trying to independently repair and maintain these systems, since any mistake can lead to serious negative consequences. To competently service some elements, you need special tools and professional equipment. Although minor repairs are still available to perform with your own hands, you can change the same consumables yourself. Dependence on electricity. If the onboard network loses voltage, the battery is discharged, the engine will stop running. Therefore, in the case of injectors, there are higher requirements for the quality of the batteries used. It is also essential to monitor and maintain the alternator. Read also, How to Learn How to Park a Car in Parallel. Based on all of the above, we can say that many disadvantages are quite conditional, and to perceive them as serious disadvantages is hardly worth it, especially when taking into account such advantages, which objectively make the injector a priority choice for the motorist. Characteristic faults. A complex and multi-component design is both an advantage and a disadvantage of the injector system. Some elements over time and with improper use can break down. Their operability is violated, which leads to the need for repair work. The injector aims to burn fuel as efficiently as possible. This is made possible thanks to electronic control, which determines the optimal composition of the mixture consisting of fuel and oxygen. There are several of the most common malfunctions that occur in the work of the injector on modern cars. Sensor failure or malfunction. Regardless of which sensor is affected, the overall balance in the operation of the entire injector fuel system is disturbed. This situation leads to the appearance of floating revolutions during driving and idling. Also, the engine does not start or the engine trots. All this is due to the fact that air and fuel are mixed in the wrong proportions. This can often be noticed by the changed color of the exhaust. Sometimes the failure of sensors leads to the engine going into emergency mode. As a result, the engine cannot rev up and the corresponding light on the dashboard is illuminated. Contamination of filters or injectors. Another common situation, which occurs mainly due to the fault of the car owner. Such a malfunction is relevant for injector cars that are filled with low-quality fuel. Impurities and miscellaneous debris in the fuel clogs the filter, and subsequently the injectors themselves can become contaminated. If they are clogged, the shape of the atomization torch is disturbed. This leads to localized temperature rise, detonation, and valve burnout. To prevent this situation, the filter must be replaced periodically. In addition, it is worth changing the filter mesh on the gasoline pump when the mileage exceeds 70,000 kilometers, as well as once every 3 to 4 years to wash the fuel tank. Fuel injectors pouring fuel. This occurs because the injectors do not close after the electronic control unit stops supplying impulses. As a result, part of the fuel penetrates into the combustion chamber, into the engine lubrication outlet system, seeping through the piston rings. This leads to unfortunate consequences for the entire engine. After all, the fuel mixes with the oil, and the lubrication characteristics are significantly reduced. If the fuel ends up in the exhaust system, the catalytic converter, designed to clean the exhaust from harmful impurities, breaks. Failure of the gasoline pump. In it, the pressure can fall below the norms established by the automaker. The causes of failure are different, but mostly it is pollution. From this falls the performance of the injectors themselves. The most important procedure, which is often carried out by car owners of injector cars with their own hands, is the cleaning of injectors. They are cleaned by removing them or directly on the power unit. Engine flushing involves the use of special flushing compounds. They are poured into the engine and pumped through the system. In this case, the fuel line should be disconnected from the ramp, and a compressor should be put in place of the fuel pump. It is with its help that a special wash designed for injectors is pumped through the entire system. Another option involves the removal of injectors and the use of ultrasonic bath on the stand. But this is available only in specialized car services. It is almost impossible to realize such a washing in garage conditions. The essence of the ultrasonic bath is that a special device with wave vibrations affects the accumulated deposits and destroys them. Useful tips. If you have at your disposal a car with an injector engine, then the fuel-air mixture distribution system used here implies compliance with some rules and recommendations. This will allow you to maintain the performance of the power plant, keep it intact, avoid characteristic malfunctions, and prevent costly repairs. It is recommended to change the fuel filter on the engine. This procedure is carried out at least once every 15,000 kilometers of mileage. The injectors must be cleaned periodically. If you do not have experience and skills in self-cleaning, it is better to entrust this procedure to specialists. Cleaning of injectors is carried out at intervals of about 30 to 40,000 kilometers. The fuel used also plays a major role in the confident and trouble-free operation of the injector. The higher the quality of the fuel, the fewer problems will occur in the injector system. For prevention, cleaners that remove contaminants in the fuel system are often used. They are added directly to the fuel itself. But such additives are relevant to use on new cars, as well as after deep cleaning. Additives are preventive, and it is important to remember about it. There is no need for such additives when the injectors are already contaminated. They should be cleaned first. And to further prevent severe contamination, it is allowed to periodically pour additives into the tank. Never wait until the car begins to show symptoms of contamination of injectors. Experienced motorists note that such a procedure is better to carry out in advance. Under the operating conditions that are relevant for most regions of Russia, the injectors should be flushed before every second scheduled maintenance. If you use flushing liquids to clean the injectors, you should do it before changing the engine oil. Injector maintenance is a direct responsibility of every car owner. Competent operation, timely preventive maintenance, and cleaning will keep the engine running for a long time. Injectors are really the best option for internal combustion engines at the present time. Despite the available disadvantages, the advantages objectively surpass them. Here the main thing is to rationally use the opportunities that give the injector system, as well as properly dispose of the motor. Resource. In conclusion, understanding the role of a car injector is essential for grasping modern fuel delivery systems. Unlike carburetors, which mix air and fuel mechanically, injectors use precise electronic control to optimize performance and efficiency. This shift has led to improved fuel economy and reduced emissions in today's vehicles. By recognizing the differences between these two systems, we can appreciate the advancements in automotive technology that enhance our driving experience. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video has clarified the workings of car injectors and their distinction from carburetors.